This is The Wire for 2300 Zulu, October 22nd, 2025. Precedence is routine. Information cutoff is 2200. Bottom line up front. Violent career criminal granted bond in Charlotte after shooting toddler. Members of the Singh family cargo theft ring arrested in California. Pentagon reports strike in Pacific Ocean as narco war spreads. New Hampshire Supreme Court Justice returns to bench after accepting plea deal in criminal case. Beginning with international events. In Ireland, unrest in Dublin continued throughout the night, with thousands of protesters and rioters taking up position outside the City West Hotel. Today, local observers noted significant fortification efforts being undertaken at the sprawling complex that encompasses the resort hotel, indicating much more protest activity is expected. Analysts comment. The situation was made worse by the fact that most media organizations have only focused on the riot itself and not the kidnap and rape of a child that started the whole affair. Compounding issues further was the observation of another load of migrants being bussed into the area under heavy police protection. In South America, the War Department has announced another kinetic strike on a narco vessel, bringing the total count to 8 vessels sunk so far this campaign. This vessel was not sunk in the Caribbean, but rather in the Pacific Ocean in a vicinity that has not yet been disclosed. 2 individuals on board the vessel were killed during the strike. Analysts comment. Regarding the previous strike on the narco submarine, details have come to light regarding the survivors of that strike. One individual was Colombian and was repatriated to Colombia after being severely wounded during the strike. This individual, who has not been identified, suffered severe wounds and might not survive. The other individual was from Ecuador and has been identified as Andres Fernando Tufino. He was repatriated to Ecuador and was promptly released without any charges being filed, as the government of Ecuador states that he committed no crime. This is quite a bold statement considering he was fished out of the ocean after his narco submarine filled with cocaine was sunk by an AC-130 gunship, but nevertheless this points to the seriousness of the situation. Venezuela, despite being the face of this campaign, is certainly not the only belligerent in this conflict, which is rapidly escalating into a region-wide war. On the home front, in Wyoming, this morning the state capitol building was evacuated after a suspicious package was discovered. Eventually, EOD personnel rendered the device safe and the building remained closed for the rest of the day. It is not clear at the moment if this device was an explosive device, but the investigation continues. Analysts comment. This incident, while not uncommon, does provide a learning opportunity for all. A staffer initially discovered the device wedged in the state seal near the entrance to the building. Rather than leaving the suspicious package in place and immediately contacting authorities, as is the recommended procedure for the discovery of potential IEDs, the staffer picked it up and brought it inside the building. After tampering with the device for a bit, someone at some point realized that it might be an improvised explosive device, and security was alerted, prompting the evacuation. In New Hampshire, State Supreme Court Justice Anna Barbara Hans Marconi has returned to the bench after being indicted on 7 counts pertaining to her attempting to use her position on the Supreme Court to influence her husband's criminal case. Analysts comment. Her husband, Geno Marconi, was the head of New Hampshire's Port Authority when he was indicted on multiple counts of evidence tampering. This stemmed from an investigation into his misappropriation of state funds, as well as running an organized crime syndicate in which he used his position to grant preferential treatment for businesses, which his family personally benefited from. As this investigation is still ongoing, many details are secret. However, Justice Marconi herself was charged criminally due to her pressuring the governor to drop the charges against her husband. As a result of this extortion attempt, she was charged on 7 counts before she was given a sweetheart plea deal, a no-contest plea which resulted in a slap on the wrist, a minimum fine of $1,200, and 0 jail time for her crimes. She not only has kept her position on the Supreme Court, but also returned to work on Monday after her fellow justices on the bench voted unanimously to reinstate her license to practice law. In California, yesterday the San Bernardino County Sheriff announced the arrest of 12 members of the Singh family who were allegedly engaging in cargo theft via their freight companies. This family was accepting shipping contracts to move freight cargo, but once the cargo was loaded onto their trucks, they simply never delivered it to its destination. Instead, cargo shipments were diverted to warehouses where the goods were broken up and sold on the black market on an industrial scale. Analysts comment. While this seems impressive, cargo theft has become increasingly common via freight companies themselves over the years. Stealing one TV is shoplifting, but stealing an entire semi-truck full of TVs, and doing so under a legitimate company with a DOT number, and doing so over and over again because nobody cares to investigate, is something else entirely. The network is also a lot larger than just a dozen people. Right now, there are over 29,000 different trucking companies in the United States registered under the Singh name. In North Carolina, another would-be murderer has has been granted bond following a weekend shooting in Charlotte. James Rayford was initially arrested after attempting to murder the occupant of a vehicle who he believed had parked too close to his vehicle. Rayford confessed to the attempted murder upon arrest, stating that he drew his firearm and attempted to kill the driver of that vehicle. In the ensuing small arms engagement, he ended up missing the driver and shooting the 3-year-old child in the passenger seat. Rayford initially had a secured bond set at $500,000 by Judge Keith Smith, an appointee to the bench by Roy Cooper. Judge Smith also set the conditions of his release to include the wearing of an ankle monitor. It is not clear as to if Rayford has posted this bond or not. The child wounded during the engagement remains hospitalized but is expected to survive. Analyst comments for this wire. For context, over the past weekend, there were the same number of homicides in Charlotte as Chicago, despite Chicago having almost 3 times the population. The release of extremely violent and unrepentant criminals mere hours after they attempt to kill someone is a daily occurrence throughout Charlotte now, despite the recent bipartisan effort to allegedly stop this exact type of situation from occurring. The recent bipartisan hype surrounding the passing of Irina's Law has meant absolutely nothing, and not a single judge has actually implemented harsher bail conditions for any criminal since the bill became law 2 weeks ago. This attempted murder proves that once again, in the exact same city, the release of violent criminals continues at breakneck pace. While it is important to remember the names of the judges who authorize the release of such violent criminals, it also must be noted that the state often just refuses to prosecute altogether. In Rayford's case, he's only being charged with assault and not attempted murder, even though he openly confessed to the latter. The police have a confession, yet the district attorney won't pursue higher charges. This concludes The Wire for 2300 Zulu, October 22nd, 2025.